Namaskar everyone. Male Vanakkam. Jagannath ji, how much time do I have? Okay, I'm standing between you and the dinner. So I will give you a hint. When you think you cannot hold any longer and you must have your food, clap loudly. And I will stop, okay? So let's go a quick journey through the mysteries of Mahabharata. But by way of a context, I will go outside Mahabharata also, in order that you truly appreciate the mysteries of Mahabharata, okay? So we are going to go a bit fast through this, okay? So next, be aware there, okay? Next. This is a quick summary of my 30 years of work on the dating aspect of the Indian civilization. In a very high way, it's a simple way to remember a multiplication of 7 or 7,000. In a simple way, Mahabharata happened more than 7,000 years ago, Ramayana more than 14,000 years ago, and Rigveda is definitely more than 21,000 years ago. Can you remember that? Yes? Just on a Shraddha right now, okay? So I am seeing some slow changes happening. For example, Anandji's presentation, when he talked about Mahabharata, although he didn't say the correct date, but he's going towards the correct date, He said 5,500 years ago. That 5,500 BC, and people are still confused. But it's an improvement because people until now used to say 5,000 years ago. Even they say that for this Indian civilization, how old is Indian civilization? 5,000 years ago. And then people, we hear that, but you can have a different points of view, opinions, and so on. In some cases, we can. For example, if you are talking about the aloo bonda, we may say this aloo bonda is better than that aloo bonda. That doesn't work for the date of Mahabharata. That does not work for date of Ramayana. Okay? Either all of the people who are claiming a certain dates are wrong, or only one is right. Okay? In certain cases, the logic is very different. You cannot just say everyone can have their opinion. Well, everyone can have their opinion, but the majority of them are wrong. We need to understand that. Otherwise, we cannot progress further. This is a quick summary of 30 years. Next. So let's look at the Mahabharata, okay? Mysteries. Now mysteries, some of you would be aware of it. For others, if you are not aware, this could be something, oh wow, I did not know that. Think of how many of you have seen a magician do tricks to you? Magician? Okay. So what happens is, magician pulls the rabbit out of a hat and you are wowed. The reason is you don't know how to do that. So therefore, it's a mystery to you, but if you know exactly how he or she does it, it's no longer a mystery. And there is a method that can solve many of those mysteries, okay? So let's look at Mahabharata. Go next. Consistency of the text. Again, the 300 plus years, and I'll use that number loosely. Okay, the 300 years of atrocious nonsense by the Indologists from outside and their lackeys in India have created so much foolishness here. So what happens is, when you ask about the consistency of the text, many great individuals, even sounding pro-Indic, will say all kinds of nonsensical things. Okay, for example, what they will say is Shanti Parva was inserted later. Have you heard that? You might have also heard that much of the development or much of the additions kept on happening to Mahabharata text for 1,000 years. And then you ask them, what is your evidence? The answer is no evidence. There is a guy, Christopher Hitchens, and his Hitchens razor, many of you may know it. The Hitchens razor goes something like this. A claim made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. So if somebody says additions happen over 1,000 years, and many of our pro-Indic individuals say that, if you watching YouTube, you will see that. There is no evidence whatsoever. Now what has happened, after Vyasadeva wrote Mahabharata 18 years after the Mahabharata war, there are many additions that has happened. Those are the relevant additions. For example, after 18 years, there is no destruction of Krishna's Dwarka. That happened only after 36 years. And if you look at the Mahabharata, how many of you have read Mahabharata? Okay, so you see Shaunak Uvacha, Sauti Uvacha, Vaishampayan Uvacha. Naturally, these are the things, the recitation of Mahabharata that has happened over a period of time, let's say 100 years. So yes, there are additions in that sense. So it's an extremely consistent text. Many people will say Shanti Parva has nothing to do with the main story of Mahabharata. Again, I hear that all the time when I watch the YouTube videos. It has nothing to do, it is just some addition. Not at all. If you remove Shanti Parva, if you remove Anushasan Parva, you will not able to show consistently decide the dating of Mahabharata. But I will also tell you something. Whatever is there in the Bhishma Parva, whatever is there in the Udyog Parva, whatever is there in the all war Parvas, and even the post-war Parvas, like Stri Parva, Sautik Parva, Ashwamedha Parva, Ashram Vasik Parva, Mausala Parva, it all consistently, without exception, leads you to 5561 BCE. So it is a very consistent text. That's what we have access to, okay? So if somebody tells you it's a kind of a conglomeration of all kinds of loose ends, it is not. Now, does that mean there is no interpolation or there are no errors? Of course there are errors. There are interpolations. There are transliteration errors, transcription errors, all kinds of errors. That is there. But it is actually beautiful. In spite of those errors, when you look at the evidence, it still points you to a specific thing. If it's a time, if it's a specific thing, if it is a geography, it points you to very specific geography. Okay? Go to the next one. So geography of Mahabharata war. If I ask you as an open question, how many kings came to fight in the Mahabharata war? Of course, they were all from India. How far in the west would you go and how far in the east you might go? Huh? Say it loudly. Afghanistan, very good. In the west, in the east? Myanmar, okay. Now see, the Anadi students are raising their hands. No, you don't get to answer that question. That is equivalent to copying. Yeah? Okay, go next. Just as a way of a quick geographical 30-second, 10-second view, all as far west as Syria and as far east as Indonesia. Of course, in between the Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, and that area. Not that we always have a detailed descriptions, but sometime even the one-liner comes in the Mahabharata, and that will tell you the location of it. For example, Balik kings. Like there is a river Balik even today in Syria. And if you go to Syria, the people are aware of it in spite of the conversion. I mean, the conversion meaning conversion happening many 4,000 plus years ago, the Islam, influence of Islam. Still, when you talk to the old people, they are aware of this. Okay, so they know Mahabharata. You'll be surprised. Next. Stating the impossible. Now these are the mysteries. Okay, go next, please. How many of you are familiar with the Saptarshis? Especially in the southern India, after the wedding, those of you who are married, you may remember that, you might have forgotten also, right? But the Arundhati Darshan. So that's the rectangle, and then there is a tail with the 3 stars. The one that says Vasishta, the middle star in the tail. Next to that, there is a very small star, just above that. Almost it feels like in the picture next overlapping. That's Arundhati. Now, go next. Sorry. Go back for a second. Yeah. So this is the verse that you see there, is what Vyasadeva is telling Dhritarashtra just a day before the Mahabharata war. And what he's saying is, saying something that we think impossible, saying something that astronomers thought impossible until 2009. So what he's saying, Vyasadeva is telling Dhritarashtra, Ya Chaisha Visuta Rajas Trailokya Sadhu Sammata Arundhati Tayapesha Vasishta Prushtata Kruta. Arundhati has placed her husband Vasishta behind. Can you visualize that scenario? If you can, great. If you cannot, imagine typically going to a big mall here and a couple going shopping. Arundhati is ahead, Vasishta is behind. Vasishta really doesn't want to go, but doesn't have a choice in that case. Something like this. Now, why this is a big deal? This is a big deal because if tonight, not the mall, but I'm saying if you tonight look at the sky, it is the Vasishta that is ahead and Arundhati that is behind. And do you know what people said? Likes of Lokmanya Tilak said, in explaining the purity of Rigveda, he said Rigveda is very pure. But Mahabharata and even the Ramayana has got some mixture going on. Some things have been added. And as a one example, one time he has said, look at this Arundhati description. And by the way, Tilak was a great astronomer, great mathematician, great astronomer. He said this is not possible, so some things have been mixed up. C.V. Vaidya, if you know Bharatacharya, okay, he says Sauti, the Romaharshana Sauti, Ugrashrava, he must have inserted something afterwards. Well, but even if it's afterwards within the 100 years, even if he has done that, okay, there is no evidence for it. So even to Lokmanya Tilak, we have to say Hitchen's razor. Where is the evidence that somebody has inserted? Bharat Ratna, Pava Kane, P.V. Kane, okay, the history of Dharmashastra. He said this is something impossible, astronomy speak, in the very order of nature. So in that sense, it is a mystery. Well, it is a mystery until you figure it out if it's possible. So I started working on this shlok in 1994, and go next. Next. And only after 15 years, just meditating on this shlok and working around, I finally could show, astronomy speak, that yes, there is indeed a time, within that time interval, if any one of us, if we were there and looking at the sky at the Saptarshi, we, all of us, would have seen just with our naked eyes, or maybe binoculars, maybe telescopes, whatever is your fancy. We would have seen Arundhati walk ahead of Vasishtha. Everyone with me? Vyasadeva is saying at the time of Mahabharata war, Arundhati is walking ahead of Vasishtha. Today it is not walking ahead of Vasishtha. If you go back 1,000 years, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago in the past, not ago, in the past, still Arundhati is not walking ahead of Vasishtha. Only during this time, Arundhati could be seen walking ahead of Vasishtha. What can you say based on this evidence about the timing of Mahabharata war? What can you say? Has to be in between, right? At least based on this evidence. Now, someone might say this could be a coincidence. Like there are 100,000 verses in Mahabharata. This could be just one. Go next. And so what happened here is somebody thought maybe I need to verify what Nilesh is saying. So 10 years after my first work, go next, please. One person, Siddhartha Chabra, a person of Indian origin based in Michigan, he said, let me see what Nilesh is saying is true or not. So he looked at the latest data, latest in 2019 from Hubble telescope, JPL labs and NASA, whatever. And he tried to verify what I'm saying is correct or not. And this is what he found. Yes, so what I said is correct. Indeed, there is a time interval within which Arundhati could be seen walking ahead of Vasishtha, as Vyasa says at the time of Mahabharata war, except the time interval has shrunk. Now, if you are looking for the year of Mahabharata war, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Good thing? Because now I have to look at a shorter interval, okay? How many of you use a vernier caliper? Not everyone. Or microscopic screw, right? So you take an approximate reading and then a precise reading. How many of you are into astronomy? Okay. So if you have read, very few, if you have read Surya Siddhanta, what is the first chapter? Madhyama Adhikar. First find the average, the mean position. The next one is Spashta Adhikar, which is to say find the precise one. That is vernier caliper, by the way. First find approximate position, then the precise one. That's what is happening. So this is a good thing. Go next, please. But this could be a coincidence, right? So how do we go about figuring this out now? Well, we have something called the modern science. Okay? Sir Karl Popper describes the modern science like this. So anytime we talk about Aryan invasion theory, okay? It's not Aryan invasion theory. I call it Aryan invasion nonsense. And not just to make you laugh. Because to have something as a theory, minimum you need these 5 things. In the language of Karl Popper, he says, a scientific method or a logic of scientific discovery is a triangulation. You see the triangle? Triangulation of explanation, prediction, testing in the context of a theory, in the context of background knowledge. If you ask Patanjali, he will say Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama, Pramanani. If you ask sage Gautam, he says Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Shabda, Pramanani. That's exactly what they're saying, okay? So if anyone is claiming, not just Aryan invasion, if anyone is claiming about anything, some claim, you say right or wrong is a later stage, but it says, please, 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 please show me these 5 things. What is your theory? Based on that, what is your evidence? How do you objectively test it? And how you draw the inference? Did you test all the evidence? And what is the background knowledge you are assuming? So these are the 5 things minimum you can ask. Now, in today's time, maybe in the question answer we can do that. I don't have a time for Aryan invasion, but I will tell you just barely other than the initial inkling, the commonality of all the European languages and possibly its connection with the Indian language or Sanskrit. There was absolutely nothing in Aryan invasion. There was nothing, there is nothing even to this day about what exactly is the theory, how did they objectively test it, and how did they draw these conclusions. Zero. Zero. So many times people will say, Nilesh, please discuss Aryan invasion theory. And many times I refuse it, okay? And the reason is this, because if we discuss for half an hour, the only thing people remember is that there is something called Aryan invasion. Nothing else, right? So the fact that it is wrong is forgotten. So these are the 5 things, and this is what I used everywhere. It's the same stick, okay? Go next. And something else, we will look at this. So now Arundhati Vasishtha, it said there is this 5,000 year time interval where plausibly, likely, the Mahabharata war took place. But it could be a coincidence. So see, P1, I started with P1. Can Arundhati walk ahead of Vasishtha? And if it does, when did it walk ahead of Vasishtha? That's kind of the problem. To propose the theory, tentative theory, TT is a tentative theory. I said, what is my theory? All astronomy descriptions of Mahabharata text are astronomy descriptions of Mahabharata times. Everyone with me? So if Vyasa says Arundhati is walking ahead at the time of Mahabharata war, I have to find astronomically that time interval where it could be seen walking ahead of Vasishtha. Everyone with me? So that is this time. Now, so if I could show that, which is that 5,000 year interval, I eliminated the error. That is EE, error elimination. Now, when that happens, now the next problem comes. That is good. That's a success. We can clap. But the next problem is this just a coincidence? Is there any other evidence in Mahabharata which also points in that direction? So go next, please. Okay. So there is not just the mystery in the Mahabharata. There is a mysteries of Mahabharata researchers also. For example, the Arundhati Vasishtha, they fought tooth and nail. You know, when I published in 2011, some of the friends are here who have seen this on Bharat Rakshak Forum, you know, going on and on in circles forever, you know, for 5 years or so. So that is, I'm talking about Mahabharata researchers. But the reason I wanted to bring Mahabharata researchers in is something like a 6-year-old can understand. For some reason, the Mahabharata dating researchers don't understand. And those who are no longer present with us, meaning alive, you know, they are not in the picture. But what about those who are alive? Very decorated Indic researchers. For example, I could have asked you the question, but everyone knows Bhishma fell in the battle on the 10th day of the war. War was for 18 days. And since then, he immediately did not die. Everyone knows that? He was waiting for what? Uttarayan. Uttarayan as in like equivalent to 21st of December in our time. Okay, that is the day. And if you look at the Mahabharata evidence, it tells you that he was on the bed of arrows, Sharashaya, for at least 95 days. Now this is simple math, guys, okay? And I'm just showing like 3 big references, but there are actually close to 100 chronology, astronomy references in the Mahabharata text. In fact, outside you will see the whole book Bhishma Nirvana, if you have seen it, that's basically has close to 100 references just referring to this. And it's a simple mathematical addition, no multiplication. And people don't get it right. I don't know why, okay? And I will not spend time on this because you can watch my other videos. How many of you have watched any video before today's lecture? Okay, a decent number. How many of you have not watched, either not read my book or not read my blog or not watched any YouTube video? Good number. You have got lot of homework tonight. Just go to YouTube and type it. Okay, but we are also going to look at the mysteries of Mahabharata, but mysteries of Mahabharata researchers, because this is an emotional thing, so people can actually think of it. You have to think, what is it? And Nyaya Darshana gives the answer, why people don't get it. Okay, Nyaya Darshana gives the answer. Go next. Next. Okay, so Bhishma, let's just finish this page, please. Go ahead. Next, 3-4 times until you get, yeah, there. So just I'm fast forwarding. This is, what you see here is basically the summary of a Bhishma Nirvan book. And some of you are just sufficient with that. When I published my first book, 2011, and in Atlanta, Diwali time, and I was presenting to a small group of friends. So one guy, my friend, and he from Nagpur. So he's that kind of person. My presentation was for like 1 hour or something. He just came to me and says, please tell in my ear, what year is the year of Mahabharata war? So I said 5561 BC. He said, that's good. Now you take as much time as you want. Okay, so somebody, if you don't want to read Bhishma Nirvana, this is the summary of it. Essentially, 100 plus evidence takes you astronomically to that middle 1600 years, where you look for the Mahabharata war. Some people want to know the answer of the puzzle. Other people want to really solve the puzzle or see how it is. If you want to figure out how the puzzle was solved, then you definitely want to read Bhishma Nirvana. Okay? So now, is this consistent? Arundhati Vasishta gave similar region. Now I'm going inside. This is all inside. Now from 6,000 to 5,000 down to 1,600. Now we have to look for the year of Mahabharata war. I'm already giving you. I'm sure most of you are watching Netflix and that kind of stuff, right? Where a detective serial, you already know who murdered who. And now they are kind of telling you, how the detectives go about figuring it out. It's something like that. Go next. Mahabharata astronomy. How many of you have heard the Indian astronomy came from Greeks? No? Just one? Do you read your textbooks? Okay, everything, anywhere. Even all our decorated Indian astronomers, right from TIFR. Okay, I know 10 PhDs from TIFR being professors of astronomy in America. And they say, well, but this came from Greek. I don't know what Indian astronomy they studied, maybe nothing. Okay, that's possible. So Indian Mahabharata astronomy, which is Indian astronomy, is actually amazingly superior. I'll tell you how superior it is. Go ahead. So this is, I'm going to go fast. I'm talking about the Mahabharata mysteries, but also Mahabharata researchers' mystery. Until my work came on board, they were talking here and there, pick and choose. It's called cherry picking, certain evidence. And even that evidence was also not satisfying their date. But they were saying, oh, here Saturn did something. And people say, oh, yeah, really? Well, the planets are always there. There are like these many evidence for the Saturn. Go next. This is for Jupiter. Next. For Mars. And I'll go back for a second. And I'm going to come back to this Mars. Like, if you just take this evidence, 8 pieces of evidence about the Mars from 100,000 verses of Mahabharata, for a second, forget Bhishma Nirvan. For a minute, for a second, forget Arundhati Vasishta. If you understand the basics of astronomy, only the planetary motion of Mars, and you understand Sanskrit, okay, and we have a Professor Gauri Maulikar here and few others, you can take their help if you don't know the translation. I have given a crude translation. Just these 8 verses, and this is the everything that is there about the Mars in Mahabharata, it will take you to 5561 BC. You don't have to, you can start from today, you can go back, it will take you to 5561 BC. So what is the mystery about it? This is how precise and how accurate Vyasadeva is. This is not a coincidence, guys. This is a puzzle that is been set up, and Vyasadeva says it. In fact, Vaishampayan says it. After the Mahabharata war, Mahabharata Grantha is all done, and there is a discussion in the Naimisharanya going on, and so when the sages ask him, so what kind of Grantha is this? Can you tell me more? And Vaishampayan says, this is a puzzle. Someone in the morning used the word encryption. Like if you're sending an email from here to there, in between it goes in an encrypted form so that nobody can read it. It is something like this. And Vaishampayan says that. He says, Grantham Granthi Tada Chakre Munir Gudam Kutuhalat. I think it's Romaharshana Sauti who says that. This Grantha is made with full of curiosities, Kutuhalat. Okay, Gouda, it's full of mysteries, and there are deliberate twists in it. That's how you solve the crossword puzzle, is it not? A jigsaw puzzle and crossword puzzle. That's what it is. So if you just take this, it will take you to that date. Only if you know that this is the clue. Mars is the clue. Go next. And Venus, and then next Mercury. So once I took this, all of this evidence, about 50, and that also takes you to 5561 BC. Go next. The mystery about the Mahabharata researchers, and you can see that in the social media or otherwise in conferences, all other Mahabharata dating researchers, exceptions none, have stopped talking about planetary evidence in Mahabharata. If you find one, do bring it to my attention. Okay? Next. So yeah, this is the puzzle, okay? And I'm not going to spend time on this. Can anyone tell me what are these 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way to 28? Nakshatra system. I know their hands are going up. Very good. Nakshatra system. I'll also tell you how old is this nakshatra system. The nakshatra system that we use today is the same nakshatra system that is used in Mahabharata. It is the same nakshatra system that is used in Ramayana. And we can show, based on the evidence from these two, also Surya Siddhanta and also Mahabharata Vanaparva, that this system was formulated, listen carefully, this system was formulated 28,000 BCE, 30,000 years ago. And even those Vanaparva stories are encoded into our Ellora caves. Actually, Pravinji and myself, we were there about 18 months ago. The whole place was left to ourselves, just him and me, for a whole day. We found a way, right? The whole place to ourselves, and actually we were going each cave. And it's amazing that some of the scenes from Mahabharata Vanaparva, not directly related to Mahabharata, are engraved there, meaning the statues and everything. The evidence, that Vanaparva evidence, takes you to 30,000 years. That's how stable it is. Anyone in the audience with a name Swati? No? Whose daughter's name is Swati? We will take that. Okay? Okay, go next. Okay, so they don't like puzzles, so they don't talk of the Arundhati Vasishta. They have stopped talking about Bhishma Nirvana. They have also stopped talking about the planetary evidence. So what is left now, guys? Okay, go next. Mysterious birth, everyone knows that? Mysterious births in Mahabharata. Okay, who? Karna. Okay, Karna, as much as you may think it's mysterious, actually it is not. You might have thought it happened instantaneously, but if you go back and read Mahabharata, you know what happened. After Kunti, so mantra, all that may be there. I don't understand that technology. But once she was pregnant, it's not like she instantly gave a birth to Karna. Actually, Mahabharata description tells you that her friends, she was a princess, but her friends and the security ladies, they protected her from anyone seeing it, and she was there for 9 months, and then she gave birth to Karna. But then there are many other mysterious births. For example, who else? Say Pandavas, fine. Who else? Kauravas. Very good. So Kauravas, that Garbha is there and it's nothing happening. So Vyasadeva takes it, splits it into 100 different pieces and puts it into whatever you want to call it, a Drona or whatever like that. And I said Drona for a reason. And that's how the 100 Kauravas and plus a sister is born. But something else. What about Drona and Droni themselves? What about Draupadi and Drishtadyumna? There is a series of these births, as if, we don't have evidence other than this indirect thing, as if there was possibly a genetic problem. That's not to say that people were not getting normal births. You see that into Ramayana also, but that is not a subject today. So, when you think of mysterious births, what is a modern name for asexual reproduction? Huh? Okay, I cannot hear it. Cloning, yes. Go to the next one. So you might have heard the one parthenogenesis, right? And immediately, of course, many Indian people connect that. They say Prutha. That is Kunti's name, Prutha, okay? But see, if you do the etymology, we talked about the Nigantu and Nirukta in the morning. By the way, those of you who are interested to see the origin of English, you'll be fascinated. If you go etymology online and just play this game, like whatever English word comes to your mind, start putting it there, start looking for its root. Okay? Now, because they don't like Sanskrit, you have to read Shiva Shastri's book to understand why they don't like Sanskrit. So therefore, they stop at something called nonsensical PIE, Proto-Indo-European. But anytime it goes to Proto-Indo-European, you should understand it is Sanskrit. They just don't want to call it. And you are going to find about 40%. Now this is, I have done for 10 plus years this business now. Jeffrey Armstrong is the one who taught me this game. You go to etymology online, you type in English words and look for this, about 40%. English is far away removed from Sanskrit actually, through a Germanic family of languages. Still, about 40% of the word you will find they have an origin into Sanskrit. And of course, if you go to Spanish and French, then it's a much closer combination because of Latin. Okay, go next please here. So parthenogenesis, and then they say, yeah, it's of a Greek origin. But then read a little bit of a fine print. It says that Parthenos, whatever the word is there, Parthenos is of an unknown origin. And if you actually do research on this, you will be amazed what you find, okay? But I'm going to move on. Next. Mahabharata demystifies modern Indian archaeology. I mean, it helps archaeology. For example, let's go next. What happened after the Mahabharata war was over and Bhishma was gone? Any big event you think of? Dwarka. Krishna's Dwarka, Mahabharata tells us, was flooded and destroyed 36 years after the Mahabharata war, right? So oceanography evidence, we cannot look at the stare at the sky and see if there is any evidence for Krishna's flooding and destruction of Dwarka. Go next. So how many of you know this evidence? Like for example, thankfully, S.R. Rao and B.B. Lal, these are the names only we know. Thankfully, this year, March 2024, there was a symposium in Vizag, Vishakhapatnam. And I was critiquing the work of S.R. Rao and B.B. Lal. And then our people get emotional. Okay. Fortunately, David Frawley was also there, Vamadeva Shastri. And in his second talk, he said he had a pleasure of discussing this with S.R. Rao. Both of them are not there anymore, S.R. Rao and B.B. Lal. And both of them had retracted their claims. Unfortunately, we don't have them on a camera. That would have been really nice. Okay? Because we are still stuck into S.R. Rao's date for Dwarka and B.B. Lal's date for Mahabharata. And they keep getting regurgitated. Okay? I mean, there is not even a single evidence in the Mahabharata text, not even a single evidence, astronomy or otherwise, that will take you anywhere near 3000 BC plus minus 1000 years or any time after 2000 BC. Not even a single piece of evidence in the entire Mahabharata text. Simply said, not even a single piece of evidence that will take you in the last 6500 years, astronomy or otherwise. What you're seeing here, this is the western part of India. The x-axis, you cannot see it, but that's the time, going from our time to here. And a y-axis is a sea level rise. The vertical red dotted line is 5525 BC, like 5561 plus 36, okay? Trust me on that calculation, okay? 5525 BC is the year of when Krishna's Dwarka was flooded. I don't know if you can see it, but that curve that is going up, there was a sudden sea level rise of about 23 meters. Do the math. 20 times 3 is like what, 60 feet? Sudden sea level rise. This is not tsunami, guys. Because tsunami water goes down. The water did not go. And I said, this data helps Indian archaeology research. How many of you have heard of Dholavira and Lothal? These are like big tourist places, at least from an Indic perspective or archaeology perspective. Notice what has happened. The horizontal line that is drawn at the top is a MSL, like a mean sea level. When in the middle of 6th millennium, 5525 BC, when the water went up, it just didn't come to where it is today. It went plus 3 meters on an average above. Do you see that? Going above MSL? And it stayed there that way for the next 2000, 2500 years until 2000 BC. And then it is starting coming down. In a very simple way, this is an explanation why Dholavira and Lothal were ports. And afterwards you can Google it. When Dholavira was a port, when Lothal was a port, you will get the numbers which are 5000 BC to 2000 BC or somewhere in between. This is the explanation for that. So now you say, okay, but where is the mystery? Well, that is solving a mystery. Why Dholavira was a port, while Lothal was a port. Okay, go next. Disappearance of Ice Age. Now, you may know some of the other researchers. Anytime they hear Ice Age, how many of you say, I mean, somebody asked me actually during the break, but say, yeah, thank you. So he says, but what about the ice age? You know, you're talking of 15,000 years, 20,000 years. You have to ask the question, ice age, yes, but where? Anyone has an answer? We were not shivering in India during the ice age. We were actually enjoying a wonderful life. Michael Petraglia and his team has done research going back to million years. For a million years, India was just fine. So ice age, we talk because ice age discussion is coming from a European point of view. So Western Europe was under ice, North America was under ice, India was just doing fine. I mean, there may be some effect, natural air conditioning maybe, but other than that, nothing. So just keep that in mind anytime you see, but what about the ice age? In fact, Saraswati, great river Saraswati, we have evidence that it was beautifully flowing with sometimes the width as wide as 26 kilometers. This is a geology, geophysics, geochemistry, hydrology research for at least 200,000 years, 2 lakhs years. So there was no ice age, otherwise the water won't be flowing like this, okay? Go next. Okay, so the Dwarka evidence that I showed just for the west coast, actually it was a global phenomenon. And you know, there is a amazing, very precise, accurate data pointing to 5525 BC around the world. Now that's not a mystery, that's just a piece of information. Go next. Modern scientific data, let's see what it shows. Okay, how many of you have heard of Atlantis? Okay, I'm going to show you evidence for Atlantis. So people are just reading the records, in the Greek records. If you know, Plato in his book said that there was, just the information he received, there was a 9,000 years before him, there was a sea level rise and Atlantis went underwater. So what is the time of Plato? Approximately 500 BC, 9,000 years before, 9,500 BC. If you add 2,000 years, that's what, 11.5 before present. Okay, let's go. This is research from 1995. Go next, please. So that's 5525 BCE, that is catastrophic rise event 3. That's Krishna's Dwarka. Next. The second one, we are going backwards in time. That's Atlantis. Everyone sees 11.5K. That is a catastrophic rise event 2. Go next. Ravana's Lanka. Now, Valmiki Ramayana doesn't talk about Ravana's Lanka going underwater. But if you look at the Sthala Puran, surprise, surprise. In how many from Kerala here? Must be on the close to border. I don't know, tell me if you have heard it. That descendants of Indrajit, like after the war, when Ravana's Lanka went underwater, that is a folk memory, that they came to Kerala. So some people consider as a descendants of Indrajit, you know, like Trivin Nair is my friend and he's written a book about it also. But also I was in Gujarat like few months ago, and in the Kutch part there is a saying, but also in the Danga part they say after Rama killed Ravana, there was a huge flood and only that one peak in Dang that survived. Now take it with a grain of salt, but the point is there is a memory of Ravana's Lanka getting destroyed or sudden sea level rise increase after Ramayana. Now Ramayana period I told you is like 12,200. Atlantis right away matches. Go next please. Okay, just like there is a Abhijit Jog, you know, Jogji, he has written a book, you have read it, The Termites, okay? But you have beautifully covered postmodernism also, okay? The Wokism and postmodernism, they are the same name sometime, AKA, also known as. I'm calling it post-Mahabharataism, okay? Let's see what is there. I forgot what I had there. Okay, genetics. So after Mahabharata, let's see what happened. How many of you know how many people fought in the Mahabharata war? Shout it out. 40 lakhs. Okay, 18 Aukshohini. And if you look at the Mahabharata description, that comes to about 4 million or 40 lakhs. Who were they? Men, women? Exclusive men for most part, right? And most of them were gone. We can ask a question, is there some effect that we can see? Go next. This is a Monica Carmin paper, 2015. X-axis is the time going from 150,000 down to 0. Y-axis, this is, just pay attention for a second. What we are seeing on the y-axis is, so suddenly 40 lakhs men are gone in 18 days. We don't know the exact population of the earth then, and we don't need to know it. Okay, this is all the genomic data that people had access to in 2015. Okay, this is a Monica Carmin paper. So what the y-axis is think of the variety, okay? All the variety into the X chromosomes. It's known as a matrilineal, complex names, female chromosomes, X chromosomes, divided by the Y chromosomes, the variety of Y chromosomes. Okay? Just let me draw, go next please, signal and also the noise. Yeah, that's good. Jagannathan, we will call it. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Jagannathan come in. If you just see as a Mr. and Mrs. Jagannathan came in, but if you are a geneticist or molecular, look, he's coming in just alone. What a timing, right? So if both of them are coming in, let's say, and if you are, just you say Mr. and Mrs. Jagannathan came in. But if you are a geneticist, you will say 3 X's and 1 Y entered the room. Right? The female XX and man XY. That is that noise there. Because nothing exciting is happening. Basically, more or less, the variety of X is 3, the man is 1, and the Y chromosomes is 1. Everyone gets that? But when something fascinating is happening, you see the changes. Now, anytime a regular earthquake happens, immediately we ask, how serious was it? What was the Richter scale? We also ask, where did it happen? We also ask, when did it happen? Think of what happened as a Mahabharata war is like a genetic earthquake. Okay, so what I'm showing you here is the Richter scale equivalent. How serious was this business? That biggest final peak there, it is y-axis, look at the y-axis, is about 16 or 17, divided by 1. So the Richter scale is 16:1, or if you take a signal to noise ratio, the electronics and electrical engineering in the room, then it's about 5:1, 16 divided by 3. So that's the Richter scale. The next question is, when did it happen? I take that peak, I draw a vertical line, it gives me the answer, about 7,500 years ago. The third question you need to ask is, where is the epicenter? Because if it shows America, then this will not work. Mahabharata war did not happen in America, okay? Although some folks at Harvard may think like that. Yeah? Go next, please. Next. Okay. So this is the graph from the same paper. Don't get too confused with all the lines. I'm going to make it simple for you. This is a time axis, and that one is, think of that chromosomes bottleneck that I'm talking about. Any deviation from the horizontal line where it is a 1.0 is basically a deviation. There are different countries or different areas of the world mentioned here. Go next. So South Asia, do you know what that is? India, okay. So let's cancel the South Asia. Go ahead, next. That's the Bharatvarsha, India. Now look at that dark green line, okay? That is the first one to see the effect. The longest to last, and go next, and the last one to recover. So that imbalance in the chromosomes, the first where it was detected is that green line, longest where it lasted, and it was the last one to recover. Do you see that? It's going there. Now remember, who else has participated in the Mahabharata war? The Middle East and the east of India, right? So look at the colors. Go next, please. This sort of, what is that, orange or the saffron color, that Near East. Yeah. So that's the second going down. The blue is the east of India. That's going the next, and so on. Now I'm going to ask you a question, okay? Maybe we can have a special prize for you if you give the correct answer. So you see the effect on India, then you see the effect on the Middle East, and so on. Now look at the yellow line for a second. What do you see? It almost shows the same behavior, except it's happening about 2,500 years after, about 5,000 years ago, 3,000 BC. Can anyone tell me what's happening? OIT, out of India migration. It is the same signature into the gene, into the population that is there. Now that's getting carried as these people going out. And of course, the Europe is thawing, the snow is melting for 5,000 years before that. And that's exactly what you see. Same thing for Central Asia. So the whole nonsense of Aryan invasion, actually, there is Aryan invasion, it's just in the other direction. Okay? And I'm not doing this for a claps, by the way, okay? Thank you for the claps, of course. Go next. Actually, there is evidence of it. Yeah, go next, please. Yeah, keep on going. Finish this. Yeah. This humble domestic mouse, the Ganesha's Vahan. Okay? What do you see on the picture? This is a genetic study, Born Army 2007, okay? So if you start looking at the domestic mouse everywhere, mice everywhere around the world, start doing the genetic studies, where did he come from? Where did he come from? All of them end up in India. Okay? And so now, how did they go there? A vacation in the Alps? No. These again out of India migrations, okay, over the time. So this is not just only after Mahabharata, even before, okay. And there is evidence of it. I'm just, because of time, I'm not showing this to you. Going back to Ramayana times, going back to Mahabharata times, okay. But let's move on. So this is the evidence. What is the evidence? Domestic mouse is connected with agriculture. Okay. So with agriculture, it is gone out. Okay. Next. Same thing for a cow, zebu cow. Okay. Next. And this is a paper, again, just shows a diagram, but essentially it's a zebu cow going out of India all the way to Turkey and further. Okay, next please. Okay, we will excuse this because of time, I will not go into this. But something interesting happens there. So epigenetics, I will skip this also. Go back for a second. This is very interesting, okay, how the mind thinks, mind plays the games. Nyaya Darshana says, why there is a gap between the actually what you should understand versus what you pretend to understand. It says, tat trairasham raga dvesha moha arthantara bhavat. These are the three reasons. Arthantara, the actual meaning versus a distorted meaning. The only three reasons, raga, dvesha, moha. Emotion, envious, or what would be a good word for dvesha? Huh? Repulsion about certain results, certain individual, whatnot. And moha, mudata, which is like confused mind or not able to comprehend properly. And actually there is another verse which says, by the way, there are not three, there is only one. Moha, stupidity, lack of intellect. That's what it says. Now, the reason I'm showing Brahma Rashi Abhijit Vega is there is a reference in Ramayana. If you just use that one reference, you know when Ramayana happened. At least the latest when it could have happened. Brahma Rashir Vishuddhasya Shuddhasya Paramarshaya Archishmantah Prakashante Dhruvam Sarve Pradakshinam. Brahma Rashi Abhijit Vega is the pole star of Ramayana. The same Brahma Rashi exactly in the same way also shows in the Mahabharata. It's no longer a pole star. Okay? But it shows the same Brahma Rashi. That same Brahma Rashi shows in another additional astronomy text of India. But I will not mention the names because that gets into the emotion and other things. But a very famous astronomer of India, the Brahma Rashi, that person goes on saying Brahma Rashi is Abhijit and Vega. And then the person realizes if that person accepts his own interpretation, immediately he has to accept Ramayana and Mahabharata time of Nilesh Oak. So do you know what he does? After writing this whole explanation that Brahma Rashi is Abhijit, he says, but on a second thought, I think Brahma Rashi could be something else. I will leave that as a clues for you to check as a homework, okay, who that is. Go next. We can skip that for time. Not complete unless, let's see what it has to say. Yeah, some few more things and I'll stop. Do I have a timer here? No. Basically, either you clap or I stop. You know, that's the idea here, okay? All right. So I asked for a name of a Swati, and your daughter has a name Swati there. When Hanuman, now this is 14,000 years ago, please keep the track of time here, okay? 14,000 years ago, that's the time of Ramayana. Hanuman is ready to jump towards Lanka. And just in a way of describing, of course, Valmiki is describing this when he's composing Ramayana. But he's saying, Hanuman is saying now, how am I going to jump? Like, you know, if you fly on an aeroplane, it shows the path of the aeroplane, something like this. He says the last line only, Bhavishyati meaning now. After this, I'm going to do it. Last line, Hime Pantha, sorry, go back. Pantha, Swate Pantha Iva Ambare. Just like Swati travels in the sky, I am going to travel towards Lanka. Just like a navigation. So he's saying, how am I going to fly? But the focus is Swati, Nakshatra. Now, why is he saying that? Now, of course, he might have said Swati is a very bright star, maybe just a comparison. You know, this was one of my co-researchers who told me, I used to say maybe this is just a comparison. And Rupa Bhati, if you have heard the name, she said, Nilesh, Valmiki or Vyasa do not write anything casually and carelessly. Every word has a meaning only if we have an ability and a patience to find it. I'm going to give you an example. So just remember this. Hanuman is saying 14,000 years ago. Go next. In a Taittiriya Brahmana, when a reference comes to Swati, you might know the Vayu as a devata of a Swati nakshatra. The word for Swati used is Nishtham. Okay, and in that Sanskrit word means a foreigner or a traveler. Okay, this is from Taittiriya Brahmana, and this is the path. Go next, please. Okay, and this is from Apastambi Gruhya Sutra. Again, referring to Swati, there is a word Nishtayam, and you know it's a we have again a professor that's very helpful. See there the translation, broader translation of that is a person, a father who wants her daughter when he is getting her married. Okay, so very useful for you. Okay, when getting married, and a father wants her daughter to be very happy where she is married. He should marry her on a Swati nakshatra. Why? Because Swati Nishtam means a foreigner or a traveler. So like that's what the girl does, right? Goes to another house. So even a single words sometime, many times in our literature, a simple word captures the history of that particular star. Okay, and how far we have to go? Actually, I am showing it to you. Why Swati Nakshatra is called a traveler or a foreigner? Because if you go back only 60,000 years, in an Indian context and Indian astronomy context, 60,000 is like yesterday. If you go back 60,000 years ago in the past, Swati was not a nakshatra of the nakshatra system. It was a pole star. It was a north pole star. And so, over the last 60,000 years, it has moved from the extreme north position towards the ecliptic, closer to the path of the sun. And at some point, we don't know when, it was accepted as a nakshatra into the nakshatra system. The same nakshatra system that existed at the Ramayana times, Mahabharata times. So some of you, I know, must be thinking Ramayana happening million years ago, 24 million years ago. Here is your evidence why it cannot be any time before 60,000. Okay? Next. Okay, quickly we'll go through few. When Krishna killed Kamsa, go next. This is a Harivamsha evidence. The only reason I'm mentioning Harivamsha is the appendix to Mahabharata, but something else. When the evidence is not available in Mahabharata and you say, how can I solve this mystery? It's not like all hope lost. So when deciding the biography of Krishna, I said there is no additional evidence in Mahabharata. I went to Harivamsha. And actually Harivamsha is such a beautiful reference. I'll not go into the details of it. I have my other videos there. You can watch if you are interested. This tells you precisely to the year when Krishna killed Kamsa. And then if you go to Bhagavad Purana, it tells you how old was Krishna when he killed Kamsa. You put it together, it comes down to 107 years, the Krishna's lifetime. How many of you are familiar with the Saint Madhvacharya, the Udupi Krishna and that, right? Now Madhvacharya now this is my research. Now independently when I did this, somebody from Australia of Indian origin, Mr. Shastri, different Shastri, wrote to me and said, Nilesh, do you know that Madhvacharya in his Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnay actually writes that Krishna had a lifetime, his lifespan was of 107 years. So this is a Apta Pratiti, Atma Pratiti, Shastra Pratiti, kind of a different Indian kind of triangulation coming together. The reference evidence is telling you same. Someone like Madhvacharya is writing the same. I don't know what evidence he used to do that, by the way. Okay, coming to this. Next. Okay, more quickly I'm going to go through the astronomy. This is outside Mahabharata, but you must understand this to have a trust in what is being said in Mahabharata. Suddenly the astronomy did not start with Valmiki or Vyasadeva. It is way before that. Go next, model of the sun. Quickly look at the Greek error is the dotted line and Indian error is the solid line. This is predicting the position of the sun. Now, when were the Greeks around? About 2,500 years ago. That time, if you take the Indian model from Surya Siddhanta, it is twice better than the Greek model in terms of accuracy. But just hold your breath, okay? Go to the next one. But if you want to find out, in scientific way, when the Indian model have been calibrated or created or recalibrated, if you keep on taking this model back in the past, just as a curiosity, this is work of Anil Narayanan, ISRO scientist and aeronautical engineer. You find actually this model of the sun in Surya Siddhanta is most accurate at the time of Mahabharata, 5500 BC. Okay, go next. Okay, everyone understands latitudes and longitudes on the ground. Also, same thing. If you imagine a football, imagine that as a globe. I mean, imagine that as a sky, and in between, at the center of a football, you put a tennis ball. So tennis ball is say Earth, and football is the sky. So just like we have a latitudes, longitudes for each location, similarly for the stars, if you expand, you can imagine that. So there are these latitude numbers in our Surya Siddhanta for all the 27 nakshatras. And if you do the mathematical calculation to figure out when they might have been measured, because those are the not numbers today, this is what you find. Go back, go next, please. Just quick answer I will say. The latitudes of nakshatra measured in Surya Siddhanta were measured 10,000 years ago. Okay, and I was having a meeting with some astronomers from Pune and TIFR, both in Mumbai, not that long ago. So when I showed this and when I explained this, do you know what was their question? Remember that P1, TT, EE, P2. They said, but where were the sophisticated instruments to measure it? And it was a group of 20, 25 people, okay? So other people started jumping and answering. I led them. At some point I said, is it okay if I stop you and I answer the question? They said, fine. And so this individual was looking at me. He says, yeah, what's the answer? Where were the instruments? There were no instruments. Even Kepler was struggling with accurate measurements. I said, guys, that's not my problem. P1, TTE, this is how you have to understand the logic. What is clear is that they were measured 10,000 years ago. We just don't know how they were measured. That doesn't become my problem. That is a P2 problem for somebody else to solve, and we may never solve it. Still, P1, TTE is true. Everyone understands that? Okay? All right. Just because we don't know what happens to us after death doesn't mean we question our current living. That is all clear, okay? Next. Yeah, just quick one. Nautical miles, you might have heard the number 21,600 at the equator. And you know, many of you might have learned that French gave us those numbers. Yeah. Go next. This is the 3438, and I will not spend much time, but this is the circumference, and the formula is 2 pi r. And the radius backward calculated by Indian astronomers is 3438. It's called a celestial number. It is a mysterious number. It is a magical number. It was a mysterious number to both Americans and Europeans when they were translating Surya Siddhanta. They were asking us, what is the radius? What is the unit for radius? Because radius meaning what? It has to be inches, meters, miles, kilometers. And the Indian astronomers, Indian Jyotishi, they were giving the answer, no, there is no unit. And these guys were confused. Okay, it's a long story. I can talk for this on 1 hour. It has to do with a naked eye resolution of we observing the stars in the sky. And this is like, you know, what you see is what you get type of mathematical calculation. All the sign tables in Surya Siddhanta or Madhava's astronomy text or Aryabhatiya, they use this 3438. It is that astronomical antiquity number. Go next. Okay, this is a good one. Who discovered elliptical orbits? Kepler. When was that? 16th, 17th century? What if I tell you the Surya Siddhanta all along knew about the elliptical orbits? Next, please. Okay, this is the equation of the sun that I told you about, which becomes most accurate at the time of Mahabharata war. What we did, we meaning Surya Siddhanta, is they modeled the ellipse by using pulsating epicycles. The European epicycles are fixed. That's why there are many, 70 of them. Indians did just only need one, except it changes the size and shape. Okay? And basically it is modeling the ellipse. This is 5500 BC. This is from 12,000 BC. Okay? Just because of time, I will not go into that. Go next. I'm almost done. What came first? Claims and evidence. I don't know what is there. Go next. Okay. Just last one. There is an argument made, and I'm sure you have heard it. Let me ask you. Many people will say, hey, you know, you Indians, or we say to ourselves, once a modern science makes some discovery, whether it's a test tube baby, then we start talking about Kunti and all of this. If something else, we say, oh, those Astra Shastra were already there in the Mahabharata Ramayana. Why do you not do this? And this is mostly asked by Indians, not the Western guys. People ask me, Nilesh, how do you convince the Western folks? I said, that's never been a problem for me. I'm in America for 30 plus years. I never had a problem convincing a Western guy if I have a science and if I have a data. I have a lot of problem convincing Indians. Okay, just like an argumentative Indian, the Sanshayi Indian, it's always there, it just never ends. So the question is, like, why do you not suggest, we meaning us, from our text, historical text, say something that modern science has not discovered yet? Have you heard that? Why do you say only after the fact? Actually, there are many things. Huh? Yeah, now what I'm going to tell you, you are not going to believe it either. For example, so therefore, just as a fun, again, Anil Narayanan and myself, we published a paper, peer-reviewed journal. Some people are stuck in peer-reviewed journal, okay? That's a long subject, another hour-long subject. But when we publish, just I'll give you a hint of it. There are many things, interesting things in this one. But the mystery is this. The mystery is not the number. Mystery is how Indians measured it. Whether right or wrong, we don't know because modern science hasn't figured it out yet. But just like everyone knows Rahu and Ketu, you know what it is, right? It is the moon's orbit cutting the sun's orbit, right? So when the moon cuts the orbit, goes up, that is Rahu. When it goes up, meaning north, and when it goes south, that is a Ketu. And anyone knows the orbital period of a Rahu? 18. Yeah, 18 is good enough, right? 18 years. It is very fast, relatively speaking. In astronomy, very fast. Just like the moon cuts the orbit, similarly, all other planets also cut the orbit of the sun. So this is about Saturn. I'm just taking it because that's like you can easily relate to. Saturn is a very slow moving planet. So, but I'm not talking about Saturn going around the sun. That takes 30 years. I'm talking about where Saturn cuts the axis of the orbit of the sun, and how that particular point, just like a Rahu, okay, but Rahu in case of Saturn, what is the speed of its movement? In case of Rahu, it's 18 years, meaning it goes through 360 degrees in 18 years. Surya Siddhanta tells us that this node or path, that is the word that is used, the movement of the Saturn's path or Saturn's node with respect to the sun's orbit, this is the speed. It says to move by 1 degree, it will take, or it takes 300,000 years. 3 lakh years. And it is saying that for other planets also. I just picked a simple number because it's a number. So first thing, how many of you believe? I mean, you don't know. But how did they figure this out? Now, so far what modern science, modern astronomy has figured out is that the relative magnitudes given in Surya Siddhanta do match with whatever little data they have collected in about last 500 years. But they have no way of telling whether this 300 number is correct or not. Now, this is a prediction. This is a prediction. So people say, where is the prediction? This is the prediction. Now what will happen? If you trust modern science, you say, oh, that cannot be. Based on what? Actually, you don't have any logical or even a scientific basis. But that's how people quickly jump and discard information such as this. I think I'm done. Yeah. And so I just shared few areas. But if you look at the whole long list that is there, actually each of this is a mystery. Like physical anthropology, I'll just mention one. Physical anthropology, the evidence exists. Many of our Indic researchers use that evidence with pride. Okay? This is of Kennedy of Cornell, his work, amazing work, physical anthropology evidence. What it shows that if there was a significant gap into human continuity in India, it was between 6500 and 4500 BCE. Just so that you know, 5561 BCE falls in it. So those researchers who proudly use that data for explaining many other things such as Aryan invasion, why it did not happen, when I present that in the context of Mahabharata, they go, thank you very much. Can you go just a couple of slides more? Next slides. Okay, if you are, so you can watch my videos, okay? If you have a sleeping problem, they work very well. Okay, at night you start watching, you are enlightened or you get a good night's sleep. Some people don't use smartphone. Well, tough luck, you have a books here. The books also work equally effectively. You start reading and you'll get a good night's sleep. Go next, please. So these are the books that you will see outside if you are interested, okay, by Subbu publication. And one more. No, back. And I just listed here 3, but some of, I don't know if we have a Kannada translation, I don't know, but they are being translated in multiple different languages, and I just found picture for these 3. So 2 of them in Marathi, 1 in Kannada if you are interested. Thank you.